Mark. Welcome back. How are you today?
Hey Rome, I'm fine, thank you. I'm sitting here in Germany. Where are you now?
I'm currently in Johannesburg. I've been at AnalyticaLab Africa. Actually, one of the biggest trade shows for laboratory and biotechnology developments. And I was there as a speaker. So it was pretty cool, pretty nice.
Sounds great. What topics did you discuss there with the audience?
So I was invited for talking about digital transformation. I had a keynote on digital transformation for laboratories. We call it the Digital Transformation Playbook. And I had a 45-minute keynote telling about how you can actually implement digital transformation, what all the AI boom is about, and what the challenges are which we need to overcome when it comes to digital transformation. It was fun. A lot of people joined and good discussions afterwards. Big fair, really well organized. Actually, funny enough, organized by Messe München, even though if it's in South Africa. It's a great collaboration between Germany and South Africa happening.
What kind of companies was talking to you afterwards? Do you have some examples there? Is that mainly companies from Africa? Which
Right.
area are they coming from?
So actually, all companies talked to me afterwards were from Africa, South Africa, Africa, from governmental perspective as well. So I think huge part is still regulations and standards in biotech area in South Africa. Then local companies in the lab industry, suppliers, for example, which want to set up digital portals to get quick and easy supplies to the laboratories or actual laboratories themselves, which need to increase efficiency in their workflows and procedures, come up with new digital product ideas. These were kind of the discussions I had after the presentation.
Did they enjoy the examples you gave them in the presentation?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was very hands-on, right, as we are. And I think that helps them a lot to understand what you can do, and it's not to keep it not too blurry, just to make it more concrete. And I think because at the end of the slides, I had a summary of our playbook in 12 steps, very concrete: step 1, step 2, step 3. So when they go out, they can actually take something into their work right now and get started. And I think that was very beneficial for them to see that how they can start.
Did you discuss also there the AI inventions that are coming up right now to the market? Because I think this sector is quite heavily touched by the solution that comes up there. No?
Yeah. There are big examples like AlphaFold 3 in the protein structure development, or all these things in the biotech sector, and especially AI is kind of a catalyst enabler for the biotech sphere. And I showed them also like the biggest tools what we like using. I think that was very valuable for them to see what is possible. I gave them an example. I built like a small prototype, a small app where you can upload your blood results, and then ChatGPT in the background identifies it. It's a front end developed, and they were pretty amazed how quick you can do stuff like this. It comes with danger on the one side, but challenge and opportunities on the other side. It's just, I think the gap between the industry and what is already possible is still quite big. So we need to kind of bring it together. And one big thing was that we need to take human along in this journey, and the people in the organization, because they're struggling the most. They're scared what's coming. They don't know if the jobs will still be there. They don't know what to learn now as a next step. And that's the biggest question.
Do you think they have an advantage in Africa because of the age of the population? Because I heard from you that they are quite young there in the average.
Yeah, the median age is 18 years. And then the next continent, so it's 18 years of a whole Africa, so of the continent Africa. And then the next continent, I think, is Asia with 31 years. So, I mean, already this gap is massive. And then you go to Europe and you have 45 years or 46 years median age, which is like a lot more. So you have massive potential in terms of young people. But I mean, you also need to give the people useful things to do, right? Otherwise, that potential quickly drops into a challenge. So that's a small border which you need to cover. But I think people are very motivated and have something which we probably don't have yet in Europe so much, a digital awareness, because they grew up. I mean, even if you go in the furthest parts out of cities, people have mobile phones. Things are done through apps on the mobile phone. It's a lot of digital things in your daily life already, which is an advantage.
I heard we was doing a call today when I was driving back from München, and you said there was one potential client also coming up to you, and you was thinking about to run a setup workshop with them or something. Can you
Yes.
tell us a bit what the setup workshop means?
Yeah. So we had a discussion right after the event with the CEO, and it was very interesting. So normally when we start working together with potentials, we have a setup phase, and this is normally 4 weeks, and we have a setup workshop in these 4 weeks where we shape and understand the actual requirements, what need to be done. So normally, Mark, I mean, we start with the C-level, right? We start with management, which gives us the power also to have the chances to change something in the organization, to transform something. And in this workshop, we need some management. We need the right people together and break it down. What is the big vision? What is the strategy? And then break this down into actionable, implementational ready projects. And it's quite cool because this particular example here, this company, has a very well lined out strategy already. They know exactly where they want to go in the next 5 years. It's really good done, which I don't see so often, which is quite nice. And they just really need now the help on how to start and how to implement. And that's why we said setup workshop would be a very useful step. Let's see what comes out of that. Yeah.
Very nice. I was thinking about, though you talked a lot about the trends, the age, and what do you think about the financial impact? And because I think as a biotech here in Europe, it's a market, I think in the last 3 to 5 years, it was growing fast. And what are your thoughts about that in Africa?
I think funding is a big challenge, especially now as US also comes up with tariffs and everything. That was a huge discussion going on in a lot of panel talks as well on the AnalyticaLab Africa. South Africa and Africa in general, I think, needs to learn and to stand more on their own feet and less depend on resources from the outside. Local production, local manufacturing, coming back, closing the circle, using the young potential to grow local, made in South Africa, made in Africa, right? Which then brings in again money, increases the GDP, and comes from the country. But that's a challenging part because currently a lot of funds are coming from Europe, are coming from the US, and US especially. Now they put 30% tariffs on all exported goods, which is tough for the country. But I see the energy and the motivation on the fair was very clear. We can and we want to stand on our own feet in the sector. And I have very high hopes that this will happen. I mean, there are companies, they're making hundreds of millions of turnover, and they're really big set in this country, right? Which is very impressive. But I think especially the biotech area is kind of an underdog area. They're not so loud. They don't really like to present themselves. They're often researchers. They're not the best in communicating what great stuff they're doing, which is sad. But when I walk over the trade show, man, there are so many innovative products. It's impressive. It's robotics, handling the pipetting. It's really, really impressive. It's really interesting, but it's just not visible enough, unfortunately, yet.
Just a question, maybe it's too deep, but what are the diseases and the things that's going on here in Africa? What do you think biotech will solve in the future?
I mean, one of the biggest things is HIV, right? Which is also in South Africa, actually, one of the biggest topics they solved in the last years and treat and work on it. And I think also more general, zooming out on not on the disease, but that the problem of Africa itself is that, or not a problem, but the challenge is that they have a complete different genetic set than compared to Europeans or compared to Asians. And we don't know so much yet about this, right? We would need to ask a specialist like Alexandra working in our company. She knows more about that, but we need more data on the specific genetic set of the African population to do more research, to build better drugs, to build better products around it and help there. But yeah, it's going in the right direction.
Cool.
So maybe, Mark, sorry, go ahead.
I think maybe when we see the product from this use case, there are many things needed in the market. And I think one big issue what we have always is we want to contribute above the borders. And I think the knowledge what we can bring there also in from partner perspective is quite valuable because we are resourceful when it comes to structuring the process, build up the organizations, align management and the people. And this is something I think we need to share in the world, because this is something like production capabilities on site. When you have the best machines or something, it's good, it's great, but the competitive advantage is always the people, né? And to bring the people in the right mood together, in the right order, it's the biggest impact you can have in the company. And this is something I think we like to do, né, Roman? And
yeah, and that was also the message back from the audience. I mean, they said, technology is the one thing, but digital transformation is actually about people, and everybody agreed on that, and it's really nice. So maybe it's time now, Mark, to lead over, because we recorded the whole presentation, and I think we can just get this rolling now. So after this short introduction from us, I would say enjoy the presentation and have a look at what we said at the Analytica Lab Africa. That was my view a couple of years ago, still very blurry. Maybe you're feeling a bit familiar with this, especially when it comes to digital transformation. I was unlucky, I have very bad eyesight, and that's how it used to be when I was walking around without glasses. Luckily, thanks to all of you who are producing these great products in the lab sector, in the manufacturing sector, I was able to get a surgery for my eyes. And that's my goal today, to give you a bit of a surgery on digital transformation, give you a bit of a clear perspective. What is it at all? It's challenging. We see that everywhere around. First thing what we hear is it's technology, it's AI, that big thing where we're all scared of. Will it take my job? But on the other hand, we are all humans. We're all working in companies, we're all working in organizations, and somehow we now need to learn to manage this big change which is happening. And that's my goal, that you go out here today with a bit of a perspective. What are the challenges in the digital transformation, and what are potential solutions and ideas on how to implement it? I might not be able to enable somebody who is completely blind to see, but maybe I can give you some clues. And actually that's quite interesting. That's the first neural link. I don't know if you heard about it, Blindsight. It's an implant for people who are blind, and they actually are able to see. So that's in trial currently. It's US-based Elon Musk behind. But it's quite interesting, because we are now starting to come to this point where we actually have humans connected with such digital tools, even though it's a brain implant. That's quite fascinating. And the first trials have been successful. They see stars already. It's just by triggering the right nerves to be able to see something. All right, today, and especially now at the beginning, I will ramp up a bit with a lot of AI-driven topics, with a lot of interesting things that are happening, so that we then can come to the challenges and some solution approaches. What I want to state the fact on, and that was a bit sad actually when I read it. That's the best study I could find. In 2022, actually only 21% of laboratories embraced the digital transformation. That's not much, let's be honest. That's not much. It's in the diagnostic field, so it's R&D labs, it's diagnostic labs. Obviously they're missing maybe some parts, but it's not the majority who's running here and says, we must conquer it. Because it might be also difficult to understand what it is, because it's quite a broad spectrum, from technology, from AI to people. Yet in the same year, and that's now the big thing, also 2022, ChatGPT came up and had 1 million users in just 5 days. Same year, 21% laboratories embracing digital transformation. On the other side, consumer market, it's this most successful story of a new digital tool in terms of user growth in 5 days. Maybe you use ChatGPT yourself, probably you do. It's your all-day assistant already. If you look a bit further even, and a couple of years later, that was 2024, and maybe you heard about AlphaFold 3. It's a company Isomorphic Labs behind. They found out that proteins are not that trivial, right? Especially when we're talking about R&D and testing and finding new drugs. And what they did is they basically built a virtual lab where I can test my protein structures. And that's quite fascinating, because the challenge is to find specific structures. And you know how that works. Normally, you go in a wet lab, you test, and it takes a long period of time until you get your feedback. Here, and unfortunately video is not running now, the biologist sits in front of the computer and manipulates the protein and checks what happens now. And it's actually one of the biggest deals in AI x biotech, $3 billion deal, went together with Novartis, and I think they've also around here, in 2024. And we see here a massive increase, 50% more accurate than the best traditional methods. That's pretty scary. That's pretty scary if you look into AI, what is possible already and also where it's heading. It's heading fast. It's heading very fast. I want to show you this statistic because I think it shows very well what impact that whole journey of AI and all the new things which are coming up are having on us. So what do you see here? You see on the timeline starting from 1780 to where we roughly now, 2025. And this is a graph based on the growth of GDP, so the impact on it. And what you see here is a steam engine impact. Then maybe somewhere here we're talking about electricity, and here we're talking about AI. It's an impact which we've never seen and which we can't grasp yet. And it's not only AI, but AI is a catalyst, it's an enabler for so many more things, and I'll cover them in a second. Things like 3D printing, we saw that, we see that already in our field, cell culture, 3D printing, things like this. If we look into multi-omic technologies, gonna have a look into this in a second, that's all enabled by this technology behind, and it's a big impact. It's huge potential, but on the other hand, we also must manage it somehow, because the problem is, it's not happening as slow as it has been. Look at the dance, how it was over the last 10 years only, and that's happening quick. And this is hard to manage, especially in organizations where we are all human and where we're working, and then we need to somehow come up with solutions. If we look further, and I found this also very interesting because it shows the development and the discovery of new modalities, so new therapies, new ways of how we might treat people, how we act with them. So you see things like antibiotics here, and then you see more and more things coming up, and you know that your best iPSCs, prime editors, whatever we have, right? And now the big thing, what I see here is 21 new modalities, and probably it's not everything, but it's a huge majority in here in the last 120 years. But more than half of them in the last 10 years. And that shows the pace we are in. And that's not getting slower, so we must kind of keep track with it and manage this. And that's very interesting because that puts our current companies and organization under quite some pressure on reinventing themselves, to come up with new products, to come up with new services, to embrace that whole digital journey. And that's what I want to look today. If we look into what are the 5 big innovation drivers and platforms, and that's actually a big future study, and there are many institutes doing this. It's ARC Investment. They're really, really good, and we like them a lot. That's why I put them here. There are 5 big things we need to look at. One is artificial intelligence, as said. I'm going to go into details in a second a bit. Especially things like neural networks and agentic AI. I will tell you a bit more about this in a second. Energy storage, public blockchains. That is also an interesting thing in a field like biotechnology. Why? Because we suddenly can make data more secure, more accessible in a broader field, not hosted in your own database, maybe sharing it across many people and making it accessible to everybody. Robotics, we see here, I just saw it before, just one stand behind, one booth behind, a pipetting roboter, things like that, happening everywhere, 3D printing. And then one big impact, especially for us here, I think, multi-omic sequencing. I'm not going to go too deep into this. There's a panel discussion tomorrow. One of our consultants has a better perspective on that. But the thing, what is so interesting here is that we have, with one method in future, most likely, and things are like this already happening, multiple views on the same problem. We don't need to do one DNA, we don't need to do one RNA. We get all in one, quicker, faster, and can interpret it from various angles. And that's quite interesting what's happening there. So with all this, it's coming a lot, right? It's a lot. And I want to jump a bit on this artificial intelligence as an ramp up to the challenges and give you a bit of a perspective. So there are 3 big terms you should know. One is ANI, so artificial narrow intelligence. That's actually where we're currently in. It's somewhat below or equal to humans in one area, in one specific area. Even ChatGPT and all these, they're not yet like humans acting. Things like deep learning, which is already used a lot in genetics, for example, or generative AI, that's all ChatGPT, Claude, and whatever we know currently. These are all tools in this area. The next big leap, what we're looking at, is the so-called artificial general intelligence. That's when it becomes scary for us, because suddenly AI is equal to human across all domains. And then even further, where we're not yet, things come up like artificial super intelligence, exceeds us humans in various areas. I don't want to scare you, not at all. I just want to show you what's on the horizon, because we cannot stop it anyway. Things are developing, but we must learn to kind of embrace it and use it for us. So where are we currently? My personal perspective, we're somewhere probably here, developing towards AGI. If you look into official statements, I have two official statements. Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI behind ChatGPT, says, "We are now confident we know how to build AGI as we have traditionally understood it." Which means, from his perspective, it's very close. I don't know. The Gartner hype cycle, you should have a look into this. It's a very, very good way of understanding future trends for technology. Shows here in the horizon of innovation, artificial general intelligence. And then there's this yellow tiny thing says 10 years or more. I don't know when it will happen, but it will happen. That's pretty sure. Things will become very clever and will challenge us. It will become our artificial co-worker. That's just a matter of time. What I want to point out here, and that's very interesting, especially as we're looking into the now, there's something called on the right-hand side, the plateau of productivity. That's when things are becoming productive after all this hype, because AI is very hyped. It's very hyped. And you see what? The plateau is yet very empty. It's yet very empty, which means all these tools, they're developing fast, they're changing, but to actually use them in a very productive way, we don't have yet all the answers for it, especially in an organization. And that is something we need to learn and find out how we can use them, either for us to make us more efficient, or on the other hand, to make our products better or offer new services. And that's what I want to show you a bit. If you look into the tool landscape, and I could, put thousands of tools here, but these are the most known ones, what we also use in a daily basis and which we also implement in companies. What I want to point out, especially here for the research environment, is Perplexity. I don't know if you worked with Perplexity yourself. It's very good. It references, it searches well. Don't trust it blindly, but it is completely different than ChatGPT. ChatGPT is like my Swiss Army knife. It's your all-rounder. You put in your emails, you do whatever, and it comes your feedback. But if you want to get quality and deeper knowledge and really say to find quality work, you can have a look into Perplexity. On the other hand, I just want to point out Claude for a second, because they're very interesting in terms of safety. They're very ethical driven, and they come up with a complete different perspective on AI, on making it very secure. So especially when you're in very regulated environments, like we are in a lab environment, this might also be a very interesting thing to think about implementing in your company. Generally, when we implement tools, we need to look that it's a compliant thing for the company. So it's called company GPT, which means we need to have some standard across the organization. Otherwise, everybody will use a different tool, and that will make it very challenging. Last but not least, how can you use AI in your environment now? I see two ways. One is you use it for yourself to boost efficiency. You use it for your organization. You make processes better. You make your organization faster. The way more interesting thing from my perspective, especially for the lab environment, is to use it in your products, to come up with new services, new digital services, and think about how AI can create new value proposition, which we don't even have yet, instead of classic diagnostics. And I have two examples for you. Let me start with the left-hand side. I actually built quickly this prototype for this fair because I want to show you how easy it is. So this is a tool where I'm not a medical person, built an online app where you can test your blood results. What does it? It uploads your blood results, it connects with ChatGPT, interprets the results, and tells me whether I'm healthy or not. I did this in 1.5 hours with AI. No coding, I just had some prompts and it came out. Can I interpret it? I'm not sure. My dad is a doctor, he looked at it and he said, the confidence score of the AI, 95%, is very valid. So that's pretty scary. We can use rapid prototyping, we can be very fast, but on the other hand, it might be very dangerous because things come out which might be wrong. That's one example of using AI to create and boost up efficiency. The other thing what I want to show you is, if you think about new value proposition with AI, coming up with products to enhancing it. This is K-Navigator, and that might be very interesting in the biology sphere because it's your ChatGPT for the biology sector. If you're thinking about developing new drugs, you can use this as your co-worker to identify where do I need to start with my research? What is my patient group? What do I need to look at? And you see here, it's your agent, and you have even agents online, what you can tell them that they do the research for you once you're gone, and then they come back to you and tell you, this is what you need to start, this is what you need to look at. So this is a complete new value proposition coming out of a laboratory sector using AI. And now we are at the point, and I just ramped it up a bit, why is this all impacting you? And I have this example here because I think that helps. If you look into a TV studio, what we know, it was very expensive to set it up. It is a massive effort to build this up. Now everybody can stream from home. It's Twitch. You put on your YouTube, you have your TV studio, high quality, 4K, and you can start. And the thing is, with labs, we're developing in the same direction. Look at alpha-morphoric and AlphaFold 3 and isomophoric labs. I'm doing virtual tests in a virtual protein. How long are we away from the digital twin human where we do digitally tests, where we questioning parts of the lab for R&D, drug discovery, as an example. So the barriers to entry are decreasing drastically with all the technology what we have. That means new players can come in the market, which we don't even know yet. So that puts us under the pressure to act and to come up with new solutions. Summing this whole first part up, I want to just emphasize how fast the change is, and that new technologies, the market, new scientific things are bringing us in the position that we need to innovate, that we need to reconsider how our organizations are set up, how we work together, and how we can bring in the technology to change and to really embrace it. So it's not a question from my perspective whether we need to transform our organizations, but it's rather a question how. And that's a bit a point what I wanted to raise before we now jump into how we actually can transform. So digital transformation is a big term, and I'm trying to quickly explain it because there's a huge confusion around digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. So the first thing what you see here is digitization. Very simple. Physical or analog things, digital. Example, vinyl to MP3. Manual lab notes to Excel. Simple, not a big thing. We all know this. The next step would be digitalization. So, for example, my Excel file integrated into a LIMS system, optimizing the process, making things faster and more efficient. And now what is digital transformation? Because that's where the confusion happens. Digital transformation is something where we question the whole industry, where we change things completely upside down. And I have here example of Spotify or Apple Music and all this. They question the whole music industry, if you remember. We don't have CDs anymore. We don't own music. We pay a monthly subscription and we get what we want. We're streaming it. So we're looking at deep coordinated shifts across people, organization, and technology. And that's important to understand because it has, at least at the end, impact on the whole culture. And when we work with our clients, they often come and say, well, digital transformation, we need to implement this new system, we need to have this connected. But then we realize quickly, well, humans are working with this. We need to train the humans suddenly. That has impact on the organization. Wait, once we start changing the organization, we're coming to the point that we transform the culture. And that's why it's a bigger thing. It's an effort, it's an evolution. And that's how we like to define it. We are acting in a defined strategic corridor or frame of our company, and we say digital transformation is a process. It's an evolution. And we do various projects which are contributing to achieve this digital transformation. Whether it's implementing a new tool,
whether it's upskilling our people, whether it's changing the organization. But at the end, it's not that we can implement transformation, digital transformation with one thing. It's a combination of. So if we look now into the challenges, and that's now my presenter, yep, works. That's the next thing I want to tackle a bit with you, is because that's what we always see when we go into, you know, this part of changing in the organizations. You can actually break it down into these 5 areas: people, organization, technology, culture, and the market. And I have from each area some challenges. I can't cover all of them in detail, but I picked some highlights. And if you have more questions, I'm happy to answer later. Let's start with the people part. The people part, we need to understand whether we have the right people or not. The biggest thing is that we lack core digital skills. We have, therefore, a big challenge in training and reskilling. We have knowledge loss, especially in Europe. It's a big part. 30% of our Europe or German workforce is in the baby boomer generation, which means they're all moving out and we don't have this knowledge anymore. What are we going to do with that? We're kind of tired of all the constant change, right? Things are changing every day in and out, and that makes it challenging to actually conquer the digital transformation. And last but not least, the anxiety of all the tech and AI topic, what I just showed you. And I found some nice information around this. Studies conducted say 75% of our employees are actually scared of AI, that they will take the job. Especially laboratory technicians and assistants are among them. Why? I can automate a lot of things. I can replace. I can make this process very efficient. And that's now a question. How can we handle that? So we look into something like more hybrid roles. I need to know more about biology. I need to know more about digital. I need to know about AI. The good news on this, to take a bit away the fear, business leaders have been asked, and they're twice more likely to choose increasing employee productivity than reducing headcount. That's a good news, right? So if we give the right answers, if we help to do the right things, we're rather skilling up people than firing. Another part, and that's a big part, what I see, organizational challenges. In the organization, and that's one of the main things, is we are missing a vision and a strategy for the digital transformation. We do something, we implement a tool, but that's not a big picture. And I'm going to cover that in a second. Inefficient operations, siloed teams and departments. We're working in departments. Okay, so we're departing us. That can't work. We can't create a flow. Legacy thinking, missing ownership. I'm not going to cover them in detail now, but the main message is our organizations are currently lacking the clarity and the direction to be able to do all this. Because, and that's my next slide, I think the management is kind of hiding out of that out. They hear a lot of words and they are like, we need to do this and that, but when it comes actually to the work they need to do, to set a clear vision and a strategy and communicate it across the organization and stand behind it and not change it every day in and out, that's where it often lacks. We see a lot of organizations, and that's the biggest challenge. Because why? Everything follows this vision and a strategy. Projects we do, products we do. If we don't have an answer here on the team level, what we need to implement, yeah, then we do the best what we know. But the big picture is often missing. And that's one thing which is very much needed in digital transformation. Next big challenge pot, what we need to look at, and yeah, it's going to work, is the cultural part. And as said before, once you start touching the part of humans and organization, you quickly come to the culture. And in culture, I mean, there are a lot of things like command and control, resistant to change, fear of the unknown. What I want to point out is the last one, innovation punishment. The organizations don't yet embrace innovation. They don't. And we must be true and honest on that. Innovation means we fail a lot. And if we want to succeed in this world which is changing so fast, we need to fail faster. We need to learn and we need to trial and error. Not everything can be planned. But if I look into organizations, they often punish this. I give you an example. I checked how many biotech IPOs in the US, and that were the best numbers I could find, have been done throughout the last probably, 14 years. From my perspective, that's always a missed chance in an existing biotechnology organization. Every IPO, a new startup coming on the market, could have been also a new innovation in a company which is already existing. Are we embracing innovation? Question. 2 more parts of the challenges we need to cover. This presenter doesn't like me. Oh yeah, here we go. Technology challenges. And I think one thing what we need to point out here is the topic of cloud. I give you an example now of one of our clients. We have a very siloed tool stack, and especially I think in the field of biotechnology, we have huge challenge with data gaps. We have local data, we have cloud data, we have regulatories on the data. We don't have data. That's also a big problem, which leads to the point that we are in this cosmos of siloed tools, some things working in the cloud, something working only on-premise, and now we need to collaborate and connect things, which is very challenging because it can't work. I give you an example. One of our clients has in total 70,000 employees. In that part, what we worked with, 3,000 employees. They needed to collaborate on very critical data. So privacy is a huge topic. And then the big question came up, can we go in the cloud? It's not secure. We're scared of it. Well, not quite. It depends on how you see it. My personal opinion is it's way harder to protect your own data center and to make it more secure than all the set and staged clouds. Also, on the other side, management will always say cloud is expensive. In this case, and I figured and tweaked the numbers a tiny bit to not have exact numbers of the clients, but we saved 50% by going in the cloud with their collaboration tool. Now they're working all around the globe with the data residency requirement to be in Germany. It works. It works. It's just a way, are we willed, are we scared, or are we not? Now, as they are in the cloud, they're enabled to do completely different things. We can use now AI tools, which we couldn't before, because we couldn't connect to all of this. And last but not least, and that's, I think, the biggest potential, what we can look at, is if we look into the market. Sarah, you mentioned before regulatory complexity. We have this in this market very much, every country, everywhere else. However, what I see, I rather look on the positive side, on the digital services. We have the potential to come up with new added value, thinking outside the box of the classic diagnostic area. Which means, as an example, which I found, and which is really cool from my perspective, it's called, that's a good question, sorry, how's it called now? It was Function, it's called, sorry. It's an online platform where you can book subscription-based for $499 a year, your testing of 160 different test results, blood, heart, brain, whatever it is. It's a subscription-based. Every half a year, you get an information back and says, well, you should update your results. Go to one of our partner labs, please, to get your updated results. And it's a complete new revenue stream. That's a company which didn't come out of the laboratory sector. They came out of the AI/digital sector, and they're now using the existing infrastructure of laboratories to come up with new added value. And that's a bit of the different thinking. So now I just need to look at time. Okay, we're good in time still. We're now at the point where we saw AI is coming, a lot is happening. We have challenges in people, in organization, technology, culture, and the market. It's not trivial, we see that, right? To implement digital transformation. So what do we see? From my perspective, digital transformation is not only about technology. Yes, it's one part, but we need to touch way more. At the core, we think about how we work, deliver value, and grow sustainably. That's a complete different shift. And now I want to give you an example. Here's still one, Jeffrey, yeah. On how we actually can implement the digital transformation and how we're doing it also with our clients. So what we normally do is, and we learned over the years, we normally go through our standard framework. And you will see that here now. I can't cover everything in detail, but I brought up an example for you to understand what you need to do to get started with it, so that you maybe can go out here and have an idea of what's the roadmap, where do we need to. We always start with meaning and purpose, vision, what I just told you before. I'll give you an example just now. This one, we need to break down into clear objectives, metrics, over a timeline to understand what's the journey, what we want to achieve. We go then into how we're executing this. I said before, digital transformation is not one project, it's multiple projects, different ways of executing it. We need to find the right people, bring it together. Just recently, we finished one of our projects in the lab sector. We had doctors, we had technicians, biologists, IT, a mixture of a lot of different responsibilities, but that's how it became successful. And last but not least, rhythm and tools and software. And with this flow, you can go through implementing digital transformation. Let's jump into one example, and you don't need to read through it, but I like to write a short case study because otherwise it's so theoretical. So I said, today we are in AnalyticaLabs. Guess why the name? It's a fictive company. I just came up with that. Imagine 80 employees, something like this. We are going into the genetic sector. It's a genetic lab, probably somewhat around 7 million revenue. I don't know, somewhere in this range. And classical challenges you might also know from the field. Slow turnaround times, data entry errors, we're all humans, missing samples, whatever it is. Operational bottlenecks, limited service offerings, classic diagnostic offerings, and last but not least, the pressure from the market. So this is a scenario what we often see in the field. And then it says, we need to do something now. We need to, implement something to make us new, to increase. And we're like, okay, all right, let's get started with that. And that's what I want to do now with you, just on a very high level, to fly through it. So the first thing, and this presenter really doesn't like me. Here we go. The first thing, what we need to achieve is, we need the C-level. We need the management. We need the support from the top. So the board is in charge. That doesn't mean the board is implementing, but we need them. Otherwise, we don't have the power to achieve something in an organization. We will change something in a small, tiny part. But from our perspective, there are these three layers. And positive change comes from the board, driven by the board. But then, and that's very important, stopping when it comes to implementation. They set the vision, they set the direction, and then we go into the part where people know how to do it the best. We start implementing on the layer of the teams and so on. That's the first important thing what we need to understand, because every transformation, when we start somewhere here or there, which is not supported by management or C-level, we will come to a point where it stagnates. That's just our experience. So that's why we need some sort of support from the top. What does it mean? Normally, and that's how I would recommend it to you, if you go into your organization, we need somebody from C-level, somebody from management, and work out the digital transformation vision for your company. As simple as it sounds. We have this tool that's our vision canvas. DX stands for digital transformation, just in case you're wondering. So you need to sit together, you need to come together. We normally do it in a workshop format. You need to think about the direction where we're heading to, which people it involves, implementation, what are we going to do, project, products, processes, and the value for the market. So what new value do we offer? And for us as a company, because we're not all doing this for fun. At the end, we're looking at growth, shareholder value, revenue, and whatever it is. And this forms a big picture, and it's a big picture. I wrote this now as an example for you, and I'm not going to read through that, but this is what the outcome looks like. Normally, we stand in front of a big board with the C-level. We're standing together, we workshop 2 days, and we come out with a formulated digital transformation vision, which covers a lot of parts. I just give you some examples in here. Integrating advanced digital technology, AI, and so on in our operations. Or building strong partnerships with government, industry, and so on. Automated reporting, that's the example for this analytical lab I just wrote. Yeah. At the end, you need to have this plan, because this is your big picture. Why are we doing this all? There it's in there. And people in the organization need this. Otherwise, we don't know why we're doing things, and that's very bad. When you have this, you can come to the point to break it down over a long period of time. We say a digital transformation project, and the whole journey actually, is somewhat between 3 to 5 years, if you're honest. It's just, you're touching organization, you're touching a culture, and that is a bigger change. So from our perspective, bring it on a timeline and break it down into 2 parts, objectives and key results. Make it clear what you want to achieve in this year, and make clear what are the key deliverables. And one example what I have here now is, for here in the first year, for example, you start 2 pilot projects. As I said before, digital transformation are many projects contributing to the bigger thing. And that's what I want to do next with you. I want to look into one of these pilot projects as an example. Because one pilot project in our AnalyticaLabs could be, for example, the starting point here, contributing to this digital transformation could be, and I think that's a very relevant topic, implementing AI-powered collaboration tools for laboratory technicians to significantly improve turnaround time. Could be a very hands-on example. Contributes to the digital transformation. So what would that do? Automate task assignments, sample tracking, streamline technician communication, integrate digital reporting into daily workflows, and so on. That's an example. What benefit would we get out of it? Reduce delays, that's the hope. Minimize manual errors, accelerate results to clients, and the pilot could be used for further investigation and see if it really gains efficiency. That's how we would normally start. You need this pilot project. Now, let's imagine this would be our project, what we want to do now. How we proceed from there. You take this thing and you bring it, come on, you bring it on something what we call the project vision. We had now the big vision for the digital transformation, important, different thing. Now we do the same thing, shaped very clear and concrete for this specific project. What does it mean? We need to look into who is the primary user of this, what we're trying to achieve here. In our case, we're targeting laboratory technicians. And what are their jobs to be done? So what things are they normally doing? On the other hand, what pains do they have, needs, which we need to solve? And how are we going to solve them? With the following things. So for example, with a cloud-based AI collaboration platform, or in another example, with a secure data storage, which is compliant. And at the end, and that's very important, what a lot of companies forget, we need business value out of this. So what are the targeted business value of this project? Whether it's to, in our example, reduce by 30% the turnaround time, could be one example. And once you have this thing, the whole project becomes very clear. Now you can get started. And getting started, and I mentioned it before as an example, we always form something which we call seed cell. That comes from our German word. Keimzelle is seed, like a seed you put in the ground, which starts growing. We don't want to have this hard change. Yes, I told you we need the support from the top, but we don't want it forced into the organization. No, we want now people encouraged and taking ownership into bringing it into the organization. And this you can achieve, from our perspective, the best way by forming a seed cell. That's a cross-functional team, biologists, doctors, whatever I had before mentioned, to work on this topic and to get this project done. That's how we form it and bring it together. Important. Normally, we're looking for a sponsor from C-level and management to support this project and get it in. And once we have this seed cell formed, we then proceed in a very structured way of implementing it. That's our way how we're doing it. We normally break it down into 3 phases. Every digital transformation project is based on 3 phases for us. Shape a pilot, build it, test it, bring it out, build and implement it into the organization, and then integrate and scale it. You see here, at the beginning, things are still variable, it changes. And the more and more we proceed over time, the more stable it becomes and usable in an organization. Also, in terms of working, every quarter, we are based on quarters. We have a planning up front. We work with the team together, with the seed cell, what I just mentioned, and we come together for a review by the end of the quarter with our C-level, which gives us feedback whether we are on the right track or not. And then normally a project goes through this cycle and we implement it for digital transformation. So I'm looking at the time. I don't have too much time left, but I don't have many slides left either. Important for you to understand, to wrap this up, we're splitting it in a development part and an operational part, which means our project is all our trial and error. We play in there, we test it out. Once we are set, we switch it to operations. And that's an important breakpoint, because now one project which contributes to digital transformation is now operative. We switched it and we use it in the organization. Last but not least, I put this in here for you. I'm probably not going to cover every detailed point now. I just summarized the whole playbook now again, what I said for you. We need initiation from the top. We need sponsorship. We need our seed cell. We need to come together, work quarterly based, adjust also the seed cell composition over time, because things might change. We might not need a biologist anymore, or we might need somebody else. And then once we have all this, we can jump into building momentum in the company, spread it around, communicate it, train and upskill people, and measure the outcome. So that's a bit of a quick wrap up. I know I run through this now. I hope this is a bit of understanding for you and understandable, and you can get some value out of it. What I want to just at the end emphasize, and I think especially here in Africa, we have a lot of potentials as well, right? We have an extremely young population. The median is 18, correct me if I'm wrong, which means there's a lot of workforce coming with an innovative power. And I'm doing lectures at the UCT in Cape Town since 4 years, and it's unbelievable. There's so much energy, and I enjoy doing it every time. We just must use this potential. I mean, Bill Gates, he just mentioned, he will donate all basically of his money into especially health sector in Africa. So there is potential. There is digital awareness. We're using here tools in Africa on a daily basis. I was so shocked once I moved to Cape Town that I can book my electricity through my banking app. Forget it in Europe. It's not going to happen. So there are things which are already here which we can use. And this we should just, take this potential to also bring it into our organizations. So last word from me, I believe digital transformation needs a lot of courage. It's scary. AI is a big topic, but it's also the biggest potential what we currently have. And now the question is, are you brave enough?